Okay, so we're going to continue from where we left off last time. We are currently working our way through the Mr. Robot CTF challenge, and I'm presently showing you how to hack this particular virtual machine. So where we actually got up to last time was we found out that there was a web server running on this virtual machine. So the actual IP address of the virtual machine on my system was 192.168.28.3. Once you visited that through a browser, you were presented with an animation basically replicating a Linux boot up. And we have this message on the screen, as you can see now. And this is really based on the TV series Mr. Robot. So to save a bit of time, you can actually go through the various pages, and you can actually even type some of the commands, as you can see listed at the bottom left side of your screen. And it will show you various pages and animations, some video and audio. But there's nothing really of value within the actual website itself. Really, a lot of the things we're actually looking for is happening behind the scenes. So just to understand where we're up to at the moment. So we've scanned the system and the IP address, and we've actually found that there is a port open. In fact, we found there were three ports available. One port was closed, and two HTTP and HTTPS ports were open. We also found that this system was also running an Apache server, commonly used on a Linux system. And we could also tell from the enumerations and the information we actually found that it is running on an Ubuntu distro operating system. So now that we know that it is running a web server, the mission then is to see how much we can actually extract from this web server. So one of the first things that we'd want to do is enumerate the website and find out all the files and folders connected. And there are a couple of tools that we can actually use to do this. And one of those tools is GoBuster. So GoBuster is basically a brute force attack that we can actually use against a website, and it will effectively try a word list or a list of words for common files and common folders found on a URL for a particular website, and then provide us information to actually see whether or not this particular file or folder is present, and then obviously gives us a bit of a map of the actual website that we can then use to see if there is any vulnerabilities. So as you can see on screen, there is a fairly long instruction and a couple of commands or switches that are available. But basically, we're using GoBuster to find directories of a particular web address or IP address, and then we're using a word list that could be found in Kali Linux, and it's a small version of this list. There are a medium and also a much larger or longer version. The main difference is the amount of words that are available, and therefore would take a lot longer time for it to enumerate a complete website. So we're just going to use the small list for the moment. So I'm going to switch over to my Kali machine. So here we are on my Kali Linux machine. Before we actually install GoBuster on this machine, the first thing that really you should do is to ensure that you have, first of all, updated the repository list and also upgraded your Kali machine. So I'm going to do that now. And it's going to effectively make sure that it's got the latest updates, and then it will attempt to do an upgrade. Now, I will confess that I have already done this previously, so that is done. Now, once that's done, then you can go ahead and install GoBuster. By doing an app install and Y for any prompts. And again, I've already done this on this machine, but that is how you would install GoBuster. One important thing to note here is that for this to work, this particular virtual machine needed to be on a NAT connection and not our private network. So now that that's been done, I can now put this back onto the private network. So to do that, I'll just go back into the settings, into network, and you can see that I've had to change it back to the network address translator, which basically means that this will use the host machine's access to the internet to actually make its connection. But now that that's been done, I can now switch back to host only and back to the connection we made previously. That's okay. And now I can start up this virtual machine again. And this will allow us to connect to our Mr. Robot machine. Okay, so Kali Linux has booted up, and hopefully you can notice that since this has been updated and upgraded, got a new background. So we're just going to go back into our terminal as root, and we can now move on to the next phase now that we've upgraded and updated our Kali Linux version. We've installed GoBuster. I can now do, first of all, let's confirm that I am actually still on the same private network address, which I am. I can still access the Mr. Robot virtual machine, which was 28.3. You can see there, that's fine. So we're good to go from here. So I can do GoBuster now that it's installed. I can also do dir. We can also see here that I've installed the actual address for Mr. Robot's virtual machine. And we've got the word list, and this is the location of where the word list can be found on Kali. However, we are using the small version, so it's a very short version. There is a medium and long version with a lot more words, so therefore tests that can be done. But for now, we're just going to do a small one. So this is still going to take a little bit of time. So that starts to execute, and as you can see, it's starting to enumerate and find all the actual directories and also files connected to this particular web server. So it's going through and doing a brute force attempt. and this will take a little bit of time before it completes, so I'm going to pause the video here. So we've returned just after GoBuster has completed its enumeration, and we can actually find some useful pieces of information here. Just looking through this, it will list for us a number of directories which are available. Included in these directories are obviously files, which will be also useful as well. So using GoBuster, it has actually brute forced the web server to actually list a number of directories that are of potential interest on this particular server. And you can see here there are a number of folders, including an image folder, both lowercase I and uppercase I. There's a JS folder, a JavaScript folder here. There's various logins folders. The ones with WP, or the folders with WP at the beginning of them, of importance, because these are refer to WordPress. So these are going to be of interest as well. There's a dashboard, and we've also got a robots folder, which we'll probably take a look at a little bit closer. So GoBuster has run a word list against the server, trying and testing to see if these folders or files exist on that particular web server. And then this is the result of that. Now, there is an alternative to GoBuster, and the alternative to GoBuster is actually DirBuster. And DirBuster, unlike GoBuster, is actually already built into Kali Linux. So to access DirBuster, all you need to do is to go into the launch section of Kali Linux applications, and we're looking for DirBuster. We can then select the first option there, and this is a GUI as opposed to a console version. There is a console version of this which is called DIRB, but this is DirBuster, and therefore it's the GUI version. So I'm just going to demonstrate that here. So we would put in the protocol for the web server, and then the IP address, and then we can even put a port. So a typical HTTP website would have a port 80. If this was HTTPS, it'll be 443. We can also select the number of threads, and this basically will run multiple requests simultaneously against the web server. You need to be careful here that if the requests are too large, or the threads are too large, it will actually interpret it much like a denial of service attack, and effectively it could shut the web server down, and then you won't get any results whatsoever. So keeping it low will be best. However, if it is a large web server or cluster, you could actually do the go faster and actually have multiple requests going at simultaneous. We need, just like GoBuster, to have a word list. So if I go into browse, I'll go back to the root, into users, into share, and then I'm looking for a word list or lists. So I'm just going to select that, and that will take us to this folder here. Then we've got a couple of folders, but the DirBuster is the one that I'm looking for. And again, I'm going to use this small text file here. There are other options, but as before, they're a lot longer, some of them, and there's slight different variations in some of the words that are in the list itself. So I'm just going to use this one for the moment. Not really going to change any of the other settings, but obviously we're brute forcing directories and files. I'll just click the start button here, and then off it goes, and then it will start to do a brute force attack against the web server. And if I go to the list here, it actually shows you the results of what it finds.